Welcome to WG Sports, the All Things CFB Show. We've got a pretty packed episode 4, and we're going to be covering some Week 4 reactions, Week 5 predictions, and also be talking about some of the SEC permanent opponents that just came out earlier this week. But let's start with the reactions. We had a very interesting weekend of college football a couple days ago. So, first game I want to mention is Auburn at Oklahoma. So Jackson Arnold took a trip down memory lane last Saturday against the Sooners in Norman. But the Oklahoma, they ruined his return, of course. 24-17 win over Auburn. Now, I want to talk about John Mateer real quick and just quarterbacks in general. John Mateer had an all right game. 270 yards, one touchdown in the air, 30 yards and a touchdown on the ground, lost a fumble. All right. So, definitely, I mean, he won the game for them, right? Like he played good enough to win. However, to be honest, watching this game, neither quarterbacks really stuck out to me. Jackson Arnold had a slightly worse game, I think, than Mateer statistically wise, but they both just didn't really stick out to me. John Mateer didn't stick out to me like he did against Michigan. Jackson Arnold didn't stick out to me like he did against Baylor. And this felt like a lot more of a defensive oriented game than what a lot of people I think were expecting. Although I personally figured it'd be that way. However, I want to talk about just a little highlight. How about Oklahoma's wide receiver Isaiah Sategna the third with 9 receptions for 127 yards? I personally never heard of the guy. I'm gonna be honest, but he was a highlight player for the Sooners on Saturday. But you got to think about this game just from a bird's eye view. This brought Oklahoma back down to reality a little bit. Yes, they won the game. Yes, they're undefeated. But now that they played a conference opponent, you saw a little bit more struggle. You saw it didn't look Oklahoma didn't look as indestructible as they did in the first 3 4 weeks of the season. So it definitely brought down that team back to, and especially that fan base back a little bit down to earth. But I mean, you still have a very positive outlook, of course. I'm not going to say that. All you have to do is beat Kent State and you're 5-0 going into the Red River rivalry. That is the best case scenario for every single Oklahoma fan going into the season. And as long as they win in 2 weeks, they're there. So I'm not saying we should be negative about Oklahoma. I'm just saying this game showed the weaknesses of the Sooners more than we saw in the past couple games, and it definitely just brought some of the national hype a little bit back down to earth. Looking at the other side, Auburn not as positive. Just a really tough loss. I really feel for this team. It was just really disappointing because obviously this is a team that is looking to go to the college football playoffs. That knows most of the national media, most of the SEC doubts them. Does not. Some people don't even think they'll make a bowl game. So they wanted to go prove people wrong. Go make the playoffs. Go make an impressive 10-win season. Do something big. And if they wanted to do that, they would have had to win this game. This was a must-win game, especially early in the season. You definitely have some tricks you can still pull up your sleeve. You haven't revealed your entire playbook yet. This was a must-win game that they didn't get. Now, when talking about why they lost, you can definitely pinpoint some of this loss on the refs. It takes a lot for the SEC to come out publicly and admit they missed something, especially something that led to a touchdown for the opposing team. And although I had picked Oklahoma to win, I was still stunned when they ruled it wasn't a fumble in the first quarter. It was 7-0 Auburn right off the bat before anyone knew anything in Norman, and then the refs turned it over. I really thought they didn't have enough to turn it over. So that's 7 points wiped off for the board for there. That's 7 points given to Oklahoma when the SEC said they shouldn't. 14-point swing by the refs there. And keep in mind, Oklahoma only won by 7. So definitely not the refs' finest game in Norman last Saturday. But as much as you want to blame the refs, you can't let up 9 sacks against any defense and expect to win the game. Look at Oklahoma last year. Let up 9 sacks against South Carolina. Go look up the score of that game. And you see how it affects a team when your offensive line cannot protect a quarterback. It just throws everyone out of rhythm. All right, it's hard to get things going. It's hard to have a high scoring offense when you can't protect your quarterback. And we saw that in this game. But over the next week and the week after that, the next 2 weeks really, we're going to see what type of Auburn team this is. They lost a game they saw as a must win. Can they go on the road against a top 10 Aggie team, which we know that stadium's going to be rocking in College Station? And can they find a way to win? Most are saying probably not. I know Texas A&M is heavily favored right now, but we play the games for a reason. So I'm very interested to see how this Auburn team and this program is going to respond. But I want to talk about a game that most people probably didn't watch real quick, because at least on the East Coast, it started at 11 o'clock. I think most people were asleep by then or pretty tired. Michigan State went to Southern Cal last Saturday. And this top 25 Trojan team beat, in my opinion, an underrated Spartan team 45-31. And honestly, it was a good game. I saw maybe the first quarter before I went to bed. I went back the next day, watched the highlights, watched some of the tape. It was really entertaining to go look back and see. I wish I stayed up for it. And although it was interesting, I definitely looked to see some defensive improvements from both sides. I mean, letting up 45, letting up 31, you don't want to do that every week, right? But I just want to highlight one player that really stuck out to me, that really I think has popped up on my radar. And you might be asking, Walk, who must this be, right? I mean, it's Southern Cal, Michigan State. They don't have any big name guys, right? It's none other than the Trojans quarterback, Jaden Maava. Now, against Michigan State, I'll tell you the stats 20 for 26, 234 yards, three touchdowns. That's pretty good. Now, you might be asking, okay, he had a good game. What about the entire season? Okay. First 4 games of the season 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 picks, and a QBR rating of 95.5. Okay, I like the stats, but why'd you include the QBR rating? Oh, no reason. It's just the best in the country. All right. This is a guy who's it's his first season as the starter for starting at the beginning of the season. Best QBR in the country. Lincoln Riley, proving again why he's a quarterback mastermind. So keep an eye out for him in California for the rest of the season. I've watched this tape. I had to describe him in one word. It's that he's a baller. He plays to win and he shows up. So Jada Mayaba, keep that name in the back of your mind. And then want to talk about another game here. South Carolina went to Missouri this past Saturday. And I personally am a Gamecocks fan, obviously. See the shirt. But I picked against my Gamecocks for the game in Columbia, Missouri, and I was right. The Tigers won 29-20 in their home field to take the Mayor's Cup until the next time they play, which is the 2027 season. And just I understand that the score was better than when South Carolina played Vanderbilt. I mean, it's kind of hard to do worse than 31-7 at home, right? But just statistically, -9 rushing yards, over 100 yards of penalties, 5 sacks, 3 for 11 on third down. This was one of the most frustrating losses I've experienced as a South Carolina fan. Definitely for all the talk and the reinforcement of this culture that Shane Beamer has built over the past 2 weeks, there's definitely some red flags being raised, especially with just the fact that it's not even that Missouri was just the more talented team. I think on paper South Carolina is the more talented team, not by a lot, but I think they are. But it's just frustrating to see a team lose because they shoot themselves so many times in the foot they don't have any more toes. So you got to get so it's just frustrating, but you have to give congrats to Mizzou though. 285 yards rushing is impressive against any Power 4 opponent. And I'm going to be honest, I had my reservations about this Tiger team before they played South Carolina. I mean, their best wins were against Central Arkansas and a Big 12 Kansas defense. But I'm now confident in saying that Bo Prabula, he may not be the best quarterback in the SEC, but he is an absolute baller. right? His speed and agility really impressed me last weekend. I've kept an eye on him at the beginning of the season, but there were many plays against South Carolina where I was like, man, they really got him, and he just broke off for 20 yards, and I was like, dang, what do you do against that, right? How do you plan against that? It's just he's he's one of the more agile quarterbacks I think in the country, and that's just really impressive. And I also want to say one more thing. I'm gonna say this right now. I'm putting my stock in it. I'm investing. Okay, you can quote me on this if I'm wrong. I hope you quote this on me if I'm right. Jamal Roberts and Ahmad Hardy are the two best running backs in the SEC. When you look back at the end of the season, they're not going to have the best stats. They're not going to have number one best stats, number two best stats as running backs because they have to split the snaps. But when you look back at the tape and the impact they had for this team and how they affected the opposing defense of whoever they play, I mean, these guys are just studs. They're hard to tackle. All right. They have a low center of gravity. They punch you in the mouth, and I promise you, they don't they don't stop until the whistle's blown. All right. Now, of course, that sounds like the standard. Okay, but as you saw against South Carolina, you know, sometimes sometimes something you think might be the standard, they just go above and beyond that. They're just two really tough guys. So I'm invested in them. I personally think they're gonna be a reason that Missouri wins a lot of games this year. I mean, they're just gonna open up the pass game at some point. You know, if you rush for 285 yards week in and week out, or not even 285, it could be like 225 or something, more than 200 yards. At some point, other defenses are going to have to commit more to put more in the box, and that's just going to open up things on the edge, on the outside. So really looking forward to see those two running backs play. But the Tigers face UMass at home this Saturday, and the Gamecocks host another winless team in conference play, the Kentucky Wildcats. So I'm going to be very interested, of course, as a Carolina fan, but as just an SEC fan, a college football fan, to see who can pull that one out. So that was my week 4 reactions. I want to talk about John Mateer real quickly. So Oklahoma announced earlier this week that John Mateer is going to go undergo surgery for his hand after an injury against Auburn. Definitely felt a shockwave in the Sooner fan base. Definitely saw a lot of college football personalities. Definitely were shocked as well. So prayers for him. Hope he recovers. And obviously, this is a big loss for Oklahoma. I'm not a genius saying that this is big. And as much as we want to focus on, what's his injury, you know, what's going to happen to him, what does it mean for this team? I'm going to tell you the next 4 weeks of Oklahoma football. You have a bye week, then you have Kent State, and then you have Texas, Red River rivalry. Oklahoma football announced when they announced this, they said it's probably going to be 3 to 4 weeks until he returns. So it's possible that they will not have their starting quarterback, a Heisman hopeful, in the Red River rivalry against a top 10 Texas team. And then also after that, where do they go next? They go to South Carolina, a team that beat them 31-9 in Norman last year. So can John Mateer come back in time and help lead this team to multiple big wins? If Oklahoma wants to make the college football playoffs this year, they probably need to win. Well, not probably. They need to win these next 3 games. So you need John Mateer back. All right. No disrespect to their backup quarterback, but John Mateer is just that guy. And it's not just can he return, it's if he returns, will he be as effective as he was in the first 4 games of the season? I don't think they're going to trot out 80% healthy John Mateer. All right, I wouldn't. I'd be surprised if they do, unless they were super desperate. I don't see that happening because they know how valuable he is and how much of a risk it would be to put him out there when he's hurt. But let's say he does recover in time, gets to play maybe against Texas, or if not Texas, comes back against South Carolina. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be? Um, he's got to be a little bit more careful about scrambling for the extra 3 yards, running for that first down because of the hand injury. So it's going to be something to watch, keep an eye on as the season progresses. Now I want to talk about the SEC permanent opponents. So if you didn't know, on Tuesday, the SEC announced the permanent opponents for each team over the next 4 seasons. So this means from 2026 to the 2029 seasons, they'll play these teams every year. And after these 4 years, they'll look to reevaluate the permanent opponents and make changes that are needed. I thought that was interesting. I appreciate that the SEC is willing to do that. And I'm going to be honest, I expected to be leaving the announcement unsatisfied. With the amount of flack that the SEC has gotten over the difference of strength of schedule between teams like Florida, Oklahoma, and South Carolina compared to teams like Texas, I was expecting to have some major questions after it aired on SEC Network. So I came into it with a little bit of a pessimistic expectation, but overall, I was really impressed with their selections. Not only did they keep many rivalries such as Bama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, and plenty of others. I mean, they also, I really like how they kept the permanent opponents close to each other. Now I understand, at some point, some people are upset, what about Tennessee, Georgia? What about Tennessee, Florida? What about LSU, Bama? And I get that to a degree, but at some point you can't satisfy it. You can't do every single rivalry. You can't satisfy everyone. But I think besides keeping historic rivalries, really shortening the travel distance, I think was one of the key things they tried to hit on. And you might be asking, well, okay, Walker, why would travel distance be an issue? Firstly, when players have to travel that far, I don't think I'm wrong here when I'm saying it slightly hinders their performance and their health for the game. For example, I just picked a random game upcoming October 18th. Steve Sarkisian and Texas have to travel all the way to Kentucky and then come back in the span of a couple days. What good does that do for players when they have to do it multiple weeks in a season? But also, the fans get a better deal as well. I think it's safe to say that statistically speaking, most fans of a university live in the same state as that school or the state bordering it. So, for example, I mentioned Texas versus Kentucky. How many Texas fans that live in the state of Texas or around it are going to fly 3, 4, 5 hours to Kentucky or somewhere on the East Coast against another SEC team just to travel back within the next couple of days? How many South Carolina fans are going to travel all the way to College Station to see them play the Aggies, right? So, yes, there may be some diehard fans who do that, right? And there may be some fans who live around the school. Statistically, there's going to be a few. But the fact of the matter is most fans can't afford to do that. Of course, not every fan is a millionaire, right? I mean, they're not that's most people can't afford to do that on a regular basis. So I personally, as a Gamecock fan, I like having my three permanent opponents being relatively close to me. Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky, by the way. I like that I could realistically travel to Athens for a weekend. Gainesville would be a little bit pushing it, but that's not bad. I could realistically go to Kentucky. All right, that's better than having one of my permanent opponents be Texas A&M, all right, or Missouri. Okay. So I think that they did that for the fans, and I really appreciate that because the fans is what makes college football so great. But I think the SEC just did a pretty good to great job on this. I think they nailed it right on the head. So, and it takes me a lot to say something like that. Usually, when a conference makes a decision, I have a bone to pick with stuff like that. But overall, I was impressed with it. Now, getting into week 5 predictions. Now, if you haven't followed my Twitter account or X, it's WG Sports. And this is where I usually post most of my predictions, usually about 7 or 8 games. But I usually want to cover my main ones on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't gone follow me on X, please follow me. The link is in the description. Okay. But first game I want to cover, number 21 USC at number 23 Illinois. Just a few key points I want to hit on. First of all, USC quarterback Jaden Maava, like I previously stated, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 picks. 95.5 QBR rating so far this season. And not only is that the best of any quarterback in the country right now, but he's going up against a defense that is in the 70s in passing yards allowed. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Illinois, that secondary, will be able to limit this talented quarterback and this underrated wide receiver core. And also, defensively, Southern Cal's averaging 4 sacks a game. So I'm looking at this Illinois offensive line who lets up an average of 4 sacks a game and says, okay, who's gonna win that battle in the trenches? That's gonna be something I think that will be like a padlock stat whenever you're looking back or on the game. And then of course Illinois, you're coming off a big loss on the road, Indiana, 63-10. I mean, it's brutal. It's one of those losses where it's hard to just talk about it. It's hard to get into specifics because it's just so easy to just generally say it was just a bad game. And I think the internal strength of this team is going to be seen here. But speaking of the strength of this team, one thing I admire about Brett Bielema, all right, he's liked by some, he's disliked by others, but either way, you have to admit that the culture of this team is one that fights. When they need the fourth down conversion this season, they get it. 4 for 4 on the season, by the way. When they need to punch you in the mouth quick in the first quarter to get off strong, when it's a close game in the fourth quarter or late in the third, and they need to make some plays to secure the win, they're able to do that. Is a team that loves close games. They love competition. They love to fight. So, wouldn't it surprise me if Illinois won? All right, I wouldn't be shocked. Okay. But I do think the Trojans are going to pull out a close game. Of course, like I previously stated, I really like their quarterback. And go see the reaction segment if you didn't hear what I said. But I think Illinois will take another tough loss. It won't be as bad as the one against Indiana, in my opinion. But I think this team's going to still show a lot of heart. And that's going to be very important for the rest of the season. Because even if they lose against Southern Cal, their season's nowhere over. That's 2 losses. They could easily finish 9-3, right? It's not the end of the world. But this is going to be a huge testament to the culture at Illinois. Next game, number 17 Alabama at number 5 Georgia. Whew. It's hard to beat a game like this. A big SEC showdown, prime time, at night in Athens, Georgia. It is just, it doesn't get much better than this, guys. I mean, last year Georgia went into Tuscaloosa and lost what, in my opinion, was the game of the year. 41-34, Crimson Tide wins. 75 yards for the 17-year-old Chris Fowler. I think most people probably have that in their brain for the rest of their lives. Okay, just a huge game. It's almost a comeback by Georgia. What a game. I could go and rewatch the highlights of that right now after I'm done recording. But to talk about Alabama real quickly, they I think they have a good passing attack. I know at times in the season, especially against Florida State, they struggled. I think part of that was just I don't know why, but they just started off slow. And I'm not going to take away from Florida State's win. That was impressive. But I think part of that was just some week one getting warmed up for the season. But Ty Simpson can throw the ball as anyone. Or throw the ball as good as anyone. I don't think I'm crazy to say that. Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams as wide receivers, among some other guys. They got talent in that room. But when it comes to rushing, I want to talk about their rushing. Walker, how many yards per game do they rush? You're so concerned about it. 123.7. It's a little bit concerning. And it's not just the fact that it's only 123 yards per game. It's the fact also combined with the fact that Georgia so far this season has only allowed 102 rushing yards per game. I believe that they're like top 15 in the country. So you have talented wide receivers. You have a talented quarterback that can throw the ball as good as any other quarterback in the SEC. But if you can't run the ball, all of a sudden you're one dimensional. All of a sudden it's third and long on almost every set of downs in Sanford Stadium at night against a team that absolutely hates your guts. All of a sudden the pressure's mounting. All of a sudden you're down 14 late in the third quarter. It's third and 9, and they've got their edge rushers with their ears pinned back, ready to just hit you. Okay, ready to attack. Can the Crimson Tide run the ball? Can they let off pressure off of the passing game? I think that's probably going to be the padlock question of the game, padlock stat. If you tell me how many yards does Alabama rush for, based off that answer, I could probably guess correctly what team wins that game. I also want to point out Georgia hasn't lost a home game since 2019. A little trivia here. Who did they lose to in 2019? I'll give you a second. If you hadn't thought of the answer yet, or you're still thinking, I'll just go ahead and tell you. None other than the South Carolina Gamecocks. That game was legendary. One of my favorite memories. Israel Makamu with 3 interceptions in one game. Just amazing. Obviously, I'm reminiscing as a Carolina fan here, but I'll get back to being objective. Um, so Georgia, since 2019, that game, like week 3, I believe it was, they don't lose at home. All right. They said they have pride in not losing in Sanford Stadium. And I don't see them doing that this Saturday. Not after the heartbreaker last season, this rivalry, the hopes for the Georgia Bulldogs this year. The fact that they saw last year as a down year, despite the fact they made the college football playoff and won the SEC, they have bulletin board material despite being the guys on top. All right. So give me the Bulldogs with a big win over one of their biggest rivals in Athens. Now, finally, my favorite game here. I love the SEC, of course. My team's in the SEC, but this is my favorite game of the weekend. Number 6 Oregon going to number 3 Penn State State College. It's a whiteout game. They had this game circled since basically since the season ended last year. All right, Penn State loses to Oregon in the Big Ten championship. So you got a little bit of revenge factor there, but I think they already knew if everything went as planned, which it did. It's gonna be almost a top 5 matchup. You just got Oregon at number 6, but very high ranked matchup. So whiteout game in Beaver Stadium, 7:30 p.m. on the East Coast. It's gonna be electric. I wish I could go see it. I want to go see a whiteout game one day, but just for those who don't know what a whiteout game is, um, on one hand, I could tell you to go look it up, go see how the 106,000 fans act, but my advice is just wait till the game. Just wait till you can watch, experience it. ESPN will absolutely cover it. I don't doubt it. So get ready for an electric experience at Penn State. But looking at the game itself, though, I could go back and forth about stats and players, but I want to stick with more just of a general outlook, a little more Jimmys and Joes, if you'll say. Penn State, they're 3-0. But who have they beaten? Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. And honestly, yeah, the scores were good, but like it's Penn State, you're number 3 in the country, you're expected to win by those scores. But they haven't looked impressive. All right, now on one hand, they don't want to open up their playbook, right? It's three, for a lack of better terms, cupcakes. No offense to those 3 schools, they're still good programs. But it's not just the fact that they haven't opened up their playbook. It's the fact that if you watch the Oregon Oklahoma State game, obviously Oregon didn't try to open up their playbook completely because they have games such as against Penn State upcoming. But you just instantly saw that's a good freaking football team. I'm not saying Penn State's a bad football team by any means. They're number 3 for a reason. But I don't see that spark. I don't get that feeling right now with Penn State football. And I picked them as my national champion in the preseason. I don't think I aired it out on video, but everyone I know, I picked Penn State. I told them Penn State's going to win the national championship this year. This is a team I really like. So it's time for me to be possibly proven right or wrong. See what type of team that Penn State is. Now, everyone in that program knows how good they are. James Franklin knows it. Drew Aller knows it. The Penn State fan base knows it. Okay. Now this is their chance to prove it. Prove it against Dan Lenny. Prove it against the Oregon Ducks, who beat you in the Big Ten championship last year, who are rolling into town with a new quarterback. Someone they expect to go win this game and make a statement. Prove it against this team. I understand James Franklin hasn't had the best record against top 10 opponents. Go prove it now. Prove that this is the year Penn State makes it over the hump. This is the game where you should do it. Whiteout at home. This is it. So I know Penn State has a lot to prove. All right. And despite the fact that right now Oregon has the better looking product, I have to remember I picked Penn State to win the national championship for a reason because of their defense, because of their experienced quarterback in a year where we have a lot of young, new quarterbacks on big teams. Okay, because I really like James Franklin, because I really like their tight end room, and the fact that they can reload no matter how big the starting guy was last year, they always got a next guy, a next man up mentality. I think Penn State gets a big win with the whiteout Saturday night against the Oregon Ducks. But that'll be it for the episode. We've covered reactions, predictions, permanent schedule, permanent opponents, excuse me, and then John Mateer. Please subscribe. Please like the video. Please share it with people who like college football. Please turn on your notifications if you do subscribe. There's no commitment you have to make. Nothing hurts you. There's no negative outcome that could possibly happen. It only helps me grow the channel. It only helps me get my name out there. I just want to talk about college football. And I obviously, if you're here listening, you want to hear about college football. We both have mutual interests, so please subscribe. Please go see my X account, WG Sports. Okay, that's where I post a lot more than on the channel. For post clips, post breaking news, updates. It's more time relevant. Okay, it's more up to date. So please follow me on X, subscribe to me on YouTube. But with that, thank you for watching, and I can't wait for this Saturday of college football.